Hey everyone, welcome. I'm Gabrielle Raymond McGee, the Chief Operating Officer of the Tory Burch Foundation. Thanks for joining us today. This series is here to offer support and guidance to small business owners during the COVID crisis. Each week, we hit on a different topic ranging from marketing to finance to PPP loans. And if you miss a week, know that all of our videos are available on the Tory Burch Foundation YouTube channel. Also, we have some exciting news. Thanks to your feedback, we are teaming up with finance expert Marilyn Landis from Basic Business Concepts to answer all of your most pressing finance questions, including providing you with updates on PPP. As we know, PPP seems to change every week. And so check out torybirchfoundation.org for answers to those questions. Also, very excited to share that we've launched our new toolkit. Our email and e-commerce toolkit is here, designed to strengthen your online business. So check that out and let us know what you think. So it's hard to believe it's been about 2 months since the US enacted the stay-at-home order. This pandemic has taken a heartbreaking toll on people everywhere. And we're now approaching a new phase where we're starting to see different states lift that order, and there's no question that this is uncharted territory for business owners and really people everywhere. And that is why I'm so delighted to have two incredible women here today. Lenore Horton and Berke are here to discuss what the path to reopening your small business could look like. So Lenore Horton is a partner at Fisher Broyles. She works with businesses, startups, nonprofits. She specializes in trademark law, general counsel. She's an acclaimed litigation attorney. And I am so excited to have Lenore here. Also here is Berke. Alex is here with Burke Weiss Law. Alex focuses on employment law, and I love that she is really committed to women's issues. Back in 2016, she launched the Pregnancy Project, and most recently, she launched the Workplace Safety Project. So thank you both for being here today.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So before we dive in, it's important to note that nothing in this discussion should be constructed as legal advice. This is a very complex topic. It's nuanced. It varies based on state, local community, industry, your individual business. So before you make any legal decisions for your small business, please consult your attorney in your jurisdiction, okay? And know that we're gonna dive right in, and towards the end of this discussion, we'll have a time for a Q&A. So don't be shy. Make sure that you type in your questions to the Q&A box below, and I will monitor that, and we'll try to get to as many of your questions as possible, okay? So Lenore, Alex, let's dive right in. This is unprecedented time. We're seeing governors, government agencies, local officials really patched together almost like a quilt of different advice and different recommendations. So Lenore, let's start with you. How do small businesses safely reopen?
Yes, it's definitely an approach that requires a lot of consideration on several fronts. For some businesses, they never fully closed. They perhaps modified their operations. And so it's in a question of how much can they return to a more, to a business model that looks more like what they're usually operating. And for some, it may be that they never fully return that way. And for others, it may be that the aim is to return to what it like before the pandemic really took a hold in the US and required physical distancing as a health concern. For others, they did have to close their business completely or temporarily and are looking to reopen. And so the first thing you'll want to do is take a look at your local requirements. For one, there will be usually either a governor who has issued an executive order or a county executive that has issued some sort of requirement or recommendation or in as some governors have pointed out, an order is an order. It is not a recommendation, and it is the law and must be followed. And so you want to see what you're required to do in your particular area as a first order of business. Can you even be open, and what are the restrictions on that?
And Lenore, as small businesses start to open up, what should they be thinking about as far as keeping their customers safe and also their employees?
Well, simply reopening is not just the beginning of it. If you are an employer, meaning that you have employees, and if those individuals are coming into a specific physical location, having a governor say you can be open for business does not simply trump what the EEOC has to say, what the Department of Labor has to say, what OSHA requirements are. So you may still need to figure out a way to practice physical distancing in the actual location. I know a lot of business owners are becoming extremely creative. They are reframing and changing the way their physical locations are set up to create sort of a room where employees can come in, can change from their outside clothes and have clothes specifically and items to wear specifically on location. That may make sense depending upon the type of business that you have. For others, they have extremely limited their front of the house and created that space smaller so that they can have more room at the back of the house for physical distancing within the back of the house. So it really depends upon what kind of services or products you have, and who your customers are, and how employees interact with either each other or the customers. But you definitely want to make sure that as an employer, you are carrying out your responsibilities for employees. I always tell people having employees is a responsibility above all else.
And it's really a time of creativity and innovation, because you may need
Yes.
to completely rethink how you used to do business in order to keep people safe. Alex, as small businesses are making tough choices about who they're bringing back, what are some best practices to ensure that business owners are thinking about the best business decisions and also being fair in who they bring back?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. A major theme for what I'm going to talk about today is the need to make decisions on the basis of your business needs and to communicate with your employees. So if you're, as we've said, this is a time for creativity, for innovation, for thinking outside the box. Many, many people have said to me, I just wish there was an adult telling me what to do, but we're all the adult in this, and there is no one who can really tell you exactly what to do. So, as an employment lawyer, I'm always concerned about discrimination, right? So even if you're not intending to be discriminatory, you don't want to be making assumptions about your employees in terms of, oh, well, this person has a child, so they can't come in. At the same time, you don't want to disregard their obligations to their family and to their own health and well-being. So I think the key thing is to figure out, what do you actually need somebody to be doing? Is that something that needs to be done in your physical space? We've all been engaged in this really grand experiment of remote work. And I know that for some jobs, that's not possible. But for more jobs than we previously thought, it does seem possible. So I think it's about employers being flexible, being creative, being open with their employees about what they're trying to get, and trying to work with their employees to see what they're comfortable doing.
So communication is the key on that, right? Communicate. Lenore, what are some of the broader tools business owners can use to limit their liability during this time?
Yeah, it's, part of this is that when it comes to your business, it depends upon so much in terms of where your exposure is. So if you've got a lot of employees are a huge avenue for having liability and creating exposure. You definitely want to know that, make sure that you are aware of your requirements as an employer and are following them. If, for example, you are a business that has decided to cater to those in need at a time like this, for example, if you make and sell clothing. You've decided to use your fabric in order to sell, for example, cloth face masks. You want to make sure that as you enter these new expanded areas, you aren't making claims that aren't correct or that can't be supported, right? So if you've got a changed business model, you want to make sure that that those changes are in compliance with the law and that you aren't moving into an area without checking what sort of regulatory requirements are in place. And that's another area to consider, which is if you're in a business that already has contact with different regulators. If you're in a food service business and you have a health inspector, or you're a gym and have a health inspector, any sort of regulatory contact that you have, licensing, safety requirements, you want to see what they've had to say about COVID when it comes to your business, because they already have this relationship with you and your business that says, we have a right to regulate and control and create guidelines. And many of these agencies are doing a good job of saying, this is how we can support you, not just inform you, but support you.
Lenore, I know for small business owners, they have so much on their plate. They're lean, they're scrappy. And you and I have had so many conversations about the importance of documenting your reasoning, right? So talk to us a little bit about that, because that's something that can easily be not on your top priority list when you have so many other things to get done, but is really critical.
Right. It's, you know, part of this is there's so much happening right now and it's so fast. And if you are making considered decisions and reasonable decisions and research decisions, then you really want to make sure that you've got the backup for it and aren't trying to create the record of what happened in real time later on, in case there's an issue with an employee or with a customer or with a supplier, right? And so, for example, if you decide that you are going to partially open and you'll open in a limited fashion and it's based on particular executive orders or because of information that you received and researched, then just you want to document for that. And it doesn't mean a document, but you want to document it. You maybe, it could be whatever is easiest for you to do. It could be a series of emails to yourself, right? Or it could be one single document where you put everything together. Or if you've got professionals who support you, you could ask them to document it and include it in, you know, their regular reports or invoicing to you to just make a note of it. And so I think all of that ends up being helpful. One area I see this happen a lot is with employees, right? So people will they'll need to terminate an employee, or it's advisable to terminate them. And instead they'll say, well, we'll just call it a RIF. And I say, well, if you're terminating them for cause, tell them that. If you don't want to challenge their claim for unemployment benefits, most states will allow you to do that, even if you're terminating them for cause. But just be candid and accurate, and, you know, leave out the extras, right? Leave out the parts of it that aren't really relevant to the decision making. You know, sometimes I see the first draft and I say, okay, this is when you're talking to your friend. Now we have to do the one that is really the facts.
So stick to the facts, don't overcomplicate it. Alex, talk to us about childcare. So many women, including all three of us, are juggling a lot with kids, schools, daycares being closed. How do small business owners specifically think about childcare for themselves and also their team?
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of the $1 million question, and one where I desperately wish there was an adult in the room who could give us an answer. But the reality is there is no one answer, right? We know that childcare is necessary to accomplish any, you know, sustained focused work. And we know that it's not really going to be available for a while. So I think that one thing to consider is being flexible, right? At this point, we've all had some practice in what we're doing during this time. What is working or not working for you, and what's working or not working for your employees. So, you know, blocking off different times so that you can try and be clear about when you're free and when you're not free. again, communicating about what it means when you're out of the office. Are you able to communicate via email or not? Obviously, this requires that some employees might not feel as comfortable having this conversation with employers because it is a power dynamic, right? You always want to be on. But I think this is really the time to be focusing on what you're getting out of your employees, what you're trying to accomplish, as opposed to the mode of accomplishing it. This is not the time to expect people to be sitting at a desk from 9 to 5 if they have children that they need to be caring for. I do want to be clear that, there's no explicit legal protection for people's need to take time to care for their children. Our laws, even with our new laws, don't really match our current needs as a society. But there are some things to keep in mind. One is that the Families First Coronavirus Resource Act, right? I keep remembering. It expanded the FMLA, the Federal Family Medical Leave Act. We might get into this a little bit more later, but basically, if you are an employer with fewer than 500 employees and you don't meet the small business exemption, which I'll discuss, but basically is if it's not going to destroy your business to offer your employees some form of paid leave, and that leave is paid by you, but reimbursed in tax credits by the federal government later, you are required, there are protections to allow employees to take paid time off to care for their children if their children's childcare is not available because of COVID. That's up to 12 weeks of time at 2/3 pay. The government has really encouraged employers and employees to use that. The term is intermittently. But what does that mean? It means you don't have to use 12 weeks at once. Maybe somebody has a partner that they can kind of tag team with to do childcare, and they take 2 days a week of protected time off for caring for their children, and that means the other 3 days a week they can be more focused on the work at hand. So I think that that's something to consider as well. And it's also important to keep in mind that, if you're offering employees flexibility for other reasons, you don't want to not offer employees flexibility because of their childcare needs. That could be considered discriminatory. And look, I think majority women on this call, men are stepping up too. They obviously do childcare as well. But if women want to be in the workforce and succeeding in the workforce and not being put back 50 or more years, we cannot hide from this problem. We have to address it head on. We have to be creative. And that involves, I know that it's hard, but all small business owners have to really be trying to work with their employees to do what they can and value their employees who have childcare needs.
Alex, this is a topic that could be a whole separate webinar because it's so complicated. And to your point, many of our business owners, this would decimate their business and their financials. So this is the perfect question to consult your attorney directly because each business is different size. And as Alex mentioned, there are different regulations and application process. So make sure you consult your attorney on this. And it's a very, very complicated question. So Lenore, you've talked so much about the importance of really knowing your business and how it operates. Yes. Talk to us, why is this so important now more than ever for a small business owner?
Yeah, I think the businesses that I feel like are going to be in the best position going forward are the ones that are really self-aware as to the culture of their company and how they want to be in this space and in the communities that they work in before their clients and their suppliers. And so, for example, employment questions, I always tell people, what kind of employer do you want to be? If you're a management company, what kind of management company do you want to be? So it's really important to know who you are as a business and to allow that to reflect in how you respond and to this crisis and how you continue your business, how you map out that business continuity plan, and the types of aid that's available to you that you decide to take. I think all of that will play a role, and it's important not to allow yourself to get moved away from the anchor of the kind of business you want to be. So if you're a business that's really a part of the community and you have a lot of connection with the community, whether those are customers or not customers, allow that to reflect in your response. If you're a business, for example, a business that says we never take on debt, never ever take on debt, then taking a PPP loan that won't be fully forgiven is not in the culture of your business, you know, and I've seen businesses do that where they say, well, we never carry debt. We're not going to do this. We're going to, you know, we're not going to do anything where there's a possibility we'll end up holding debt. Allow that culture to carry through. So I'm trying to think of a few more examples that could really help businesses. If you're a business that says we want to make sure we take care of our suppliers, because without our suppliers, then we have no business. That's the lifeblood of being able to service customers. Then you want to be at the forefront of communicating with them early on and often, and making sure that you're taking care of that relationship, because that's integral to who your business is. If you run a food service establishment and there's a key set of employees, employees who are actually in the back of the house, in the kitchen, really making it happen, then you want to make sure you're absolutely addressing their concerns, so that they are comfortable coming into work and you're not looking for people to train on this very sensitive and important area of your business. So that's what I mean about really knowing yourself and understanding yourself. Another way is, if you're not good at certain things, let that be a guide into the type of help that you get. For some businesses, they know, you know, you'll have an owner that knows they're not good at certain things. And I'll say, well, who is the best person that you trust in your organization that can be the point person with me to help you get this done? Because we've got a finite amount of time and it needs to happen quickly, and I need responsiveness in order for me to help you. So why don't we delegate that? You know, those are ways to really say we know ourselves, we're being true to ourselves, and we're using that institutional knowledge to handle this crisis effectively.
Alex, so many small business owners are either not taking salaries, they're tightening their belts, they're trying to figure out PPP, which again, check out our past PPP webinars and information on our site on that. But they're really looking at payroll and they're figuring out how to make necessary cuts. What do business owners need to keep in mind if they have existing contracts with employees or freelancers? Talk to us more about contracts and what to keep in mind right now.
Mm-hmm. So I think that, you know, in terms of starting with contracts, if you have contracts with employees, many people are breaching their contracts right now, right? Employers are offering less, they're having pay cuts kind of across the board, they might be eliminating bonuses. And the real question about whether or not there's a problem with that comes if there is a breach of contract, if you change what you're offering the employee based on what you've agreed to, the contract might have a way to deal with that. It's often through a lawsuit. And then the question is the employee going to bring a lawsuit against you, and would they be successful? And I think that's where it really goes back to communicating. What is your goal? If you are really if you have actual business needs, you can't pay what you've been paying, you're not using this, and I think with many small business owners, this is probably not the issue. You're not using this as an excuse to cut your payroll. This is really, you're trying to survive and thrive through this crisis. So if you're being clear with your employees about that, and cutting pay and is what is necessary to move ahead, then you're probably you're better protected from a breach of contract claim because your employee have a shared goal together that you're trying to work towards. I think that something employers should really be thinking about is, for example, in New York and probably in many states, if you furlough an employee and they're only working 3 days a week or less, they can get some portion of unemployment as well. So think through, how are you structuring this so that you're doing best by your employees? A lot of employees call me and they ask, how long can furlough last? What is how much can they cut my salary? Well, if you're being paid the minimum wage, that's the real requirement here. And that's much lower than what many people who are dealing with. And we know that unemployment is now paying more than many minimum wages. So I think that it really comes back to making choices that work for the business based on what you actually need to survive and thrive, and communicating that as best as possible.
Well, I'm glad you said that, Alex, and that actually leads me to a question one of our entrepreneurs has brought up, which is she applied for PPP, she got PPP, but now her employees are not coming back because unemployment is a better deal. How can you answer that? How does she navigate that issue?
I wonder, I'll open for Lenore if she has thoughts. I mean, I know that this is an issue that people are dealing with. I think one thing to be aware of is that depending on the state you're in, if you've offered someone their job back and they say no, then they're not necessarily eligible for unemployment anymore. If they're saying no because they're concerned about their safety and well-being and they can't perform the job as you're offering it, that's a different story. But if they just don't, they want to get unemployment, that's not necessarily going to work. Now, that's not an ideal way to have a conversation with your employee who you're trying to work together to move forward. And I see Lenore might have some thoughts as well.
Yeah, I mean, if you've got, it's definitely a situation where a lot of business owners, they feel like, well, we did this to help our employees and now they don't want to come back. One thing is, I do think it makes sense for employers to be telling employees, hopefully they were upfront and saying, we're trying to keep your job secure, we're going to apply for this loan, right? Because if you think about it in real time, no one really understood exactly that you'd be making more money on unemployment at one point. That was not very clear immediately, right? And so those business owners that acted in good faith and they're saying, we're trying to help preserve these jobs for our employees, the earlier you're communicating, the better context your employees have for understanding. That's number one. The other thing is, now we know with the PPP program that if you extend a written offer for people to return to their position and they don't return, and you document that, of course, whether they tell you in writing or not, then you're not going to get penalized supposedly on that portion of the forgiveness. I'm still not entirely sure how that works. Because at the end of the day, either you have the expenditures for forgiveness or you don't, but and with the appropriate ratios. But ultimately, the idea is that you're not going to be penalized for those who refuse to return to work. But typically in these written notices, you would point out the impact on unemployment, their unemployment benefits, regardless of whether they accept or deny. One thing that, a lot of business owners have helped employees understand is that unemployment, this extra unemployment only goes until the end of July. So if you want to be out there in the market looking for a job with a lot of other people after the end of July because you didn't want to come back to work, then that's something to consider, right? The other thing to consider for business owners is what is going to look competitive going forward. Because that might change. And I wouldn't say that going to necessarily be a market for employers exclusively. I think that depends upon a lot. I feel like there was another part of this that I wanted to point out. You know, part of, yeah, I don't remember. So we'll just,
we can come
we'll
back
just
to
leave it
it.
at that.
Another really hot topic for small business owners is, of course, lease payments. They're the largest fixed expense for small business owners. So Lenore, do you have any advice on how to negotiate rent payments and lease terms right now from a contract perspective?
Yeah, you know, there's so much for business owners to consider. Some leases are licensing agreements, others are actual leases, some are membership agreements. Some are extremely abbreviated, some are very long. Some have like 5 people you have to send notices to in the 80-page document or plus. And others are maybe less than 10 pages, and it's an individual who is the actual owner, landlord, management company, right, of the commercial space. And so that gives you an idea of the breadth of what tenants are dealing with. One thing is, if you're going to be operating during this, if you're not closing and you need the space to produce, then that should give you an indication of how important it is to stay up to date on those lease payments. If your actual facility is in a position where they have to partially or fully close, then that's something to consider as well. So for example, if the entire facility rents out to non-essential businesses and there's an executive order in that location that says businesses must reduce to 0% all non-essential workers, then that gives you a sense of whether there's any income going into that landlord. You want to look at whether you will have penalties for failure to be open. Some leases have that provision in it. So that's the one thing, is you need to know where you stand and don't make assumptions. I've had people tell me, well, I have a good guy guarantee. And I said, well, let's just see about that, because guess what's more important than the title or the label that they give it? The actual substance. So let's see what that is and what that means. For those businesses with multiple locations where they've had business entities for each location set up, you may have more options depending upon the length of the lease term and whether that business is going to be viable as part of your reopen and the revised version of your business, right? There, you know, a couple of strategies. One, if you've got a lot of landlords or a lot of tenants, or even a lot of landlords, or even if you just have one, but if you believe that you are a viable business and can return, but you need a break, you need some break right now, and you need people to be reasonable, then consider writing a letter to that effect, saying, look, we're a viable business, we will reopen, we can do this, but we can't do this if everybody's gonna have to have their pound of flesh down to the very last penny. We're gonna need some concessions, and I think we can work something out, right? That's one option, one avenue. You wanna be careful how you phrase it and how you say it, of course, and you wanna think about the relationship that you have with them. I wouldn't necessarily expect a response. That's another thing, depending upon the type of landlord. The second thing I would say is, if you are really in need of some serious help, right? And you do believe you're viable, but you've got some debt and you've got some responsibilities, and your actual physical location is the source of the income, then you may want to consider something else that's allowed for under the CARES Act. So in February, the Small Business Reorganization Act went into effect. These are special provisions that's part of the bankruptcy code. And bankruptcy refers not just to liquidation, but to reorganization or a restructuring of your debt. That the SBRA basically said we have streamlined provisions for those businesses with less than $3 million of debt. Well, the CARES Act modified that. They said, we're going to make this eligible, these special provisions, for those with less than $7.5 million of debt. Okay. And that's going to go into effect for 1 year. For 1 year, we're lifting this cap and making it more eligible to more businesses, these streamlined procedures. And the idea of the SBRA is that it's not liquidation. It's only available if you're actually going to continue the business. Another thing to consider is that it's available to sole proprietors. If you don't have a business entity, depending upon the amount of commercial debt, you could take advantage of this as well. So that's one option. If what you're saying is we can survive, we just need a little bit of help with our debt, and we want all of the creditors to come to the table and talk about it, that's something to consider. And it's especially helpful for those with physical locations because the bankruptcy code has what's called a debtor in possession protection, essentially saying if this location is a source of your income and you don't want to be kicked out, then you can basically sit here as part of the bankruptcy proceeding and be a debtor in possession that wants to stay and use this physical location to continue operating the business.
So Lenore, that's another great example to make sure you consult with your attorney when you're making these decisions, because that is a very complex process, but we'll be sure to provide links for the SBRAs, and also make sure that you check out our negotiation webinar next week, because we'll talk through how to negotiate a bit more. So I know we have a number of questions and are tight on time, but Lenore, I know you and I talked specifically for restaurant owners, salon owners, real salt of the earth, small business. How should they be communicating, again, the safety? I know you had some thoughts around social media, and talk to us about that, because that seems to be a big topic that people have fear that their customers won't return due to safety concerns.
Right. I've seen a lot of places where on social media, I can see that they're doing a great job of keeping their customers informed and staying engaged with their customers while they're closed. Either doing some how-to videos, showing them inside secrets that they've never maybe showed before, letting them use this time to get to know some of the people at the company more. They've really found ways to be engaging and to help a community of customers that find themselves online more often, right? These days. And I think that's great. You want to maintain that interest. And it's also an opportunity to get the word out on what you're doing about COVID and about returning to work and opening back up. Now, some places, they're going to be closed longer than others, and some places will have requirements. I would say this much. If there's a requirement that's mandated by the law or a regulation, then that may be something you want to point out. I know a lot of places said, this is what the legal requirements are, and this is what we'll expect. And then other places say, in addition to that, we've started doing X, Y, and Z, right? For some, they'll modify their practices. They'll maybe say we can only take one client at a time. You've seen this with a lot of medical practices, one client at a time. And so you want to think, how can you be adaptable? Or maybe one client in one specific area that's easy to close off from another area. These are the type of things to consider physically in your space. How does this work? And then what can you be doing, and how can you be informing customers and clients about that? And get feedback. Get feedback from those who are actually using the services on how they feel about them. Was it streamlined? How can you make it easier? You're going to hear a lot. You're going to get a lot back, but I think as long as you stay engaged with your customers, you'll do a good job. If you've got a lot of social media channels, you may want to just put all of the information on your website and use the social media channels to tease it and then revert them to your website. This also reminded me a bit of the one piece that I forgot earlier about unemployment insurance, and that's, it emphasizes the need to look at what the laws and regulations and executive orders are in your particular location, because in some states, governors have actually said, if you refuse to return to work for these reasons, and these are reasons more than what it's provided for, if you're taking leave under the EFMLA leave. So for example, Texas governor put out a press release saying that we're not going to penalize your unemployment insurance if you don't return to work for these reasons, right? And some of those reasons were definitely not part of EFMLA. So, you know, the point there and the point here is look at what's happening locally, because that is what's going to matter. If you've got a lot of locations, it may mean looking in a lot of different places.
So if you're a grocery store or hair salon or will be interacting with the general public, how do you politely communicate the requirement of wearing masks? Are you allowed to do that? I know masks have become a very hot topic. So
Yeah.
give us the legal guidelines. Is it state by state, or what are the rules around masks at this point for small business owners?
Yeah, we know we have general medical guidelines and guidance, right? So the general guideline that you should be physical distancing at least 6 feet, which is a minimum. The general guideline that you should be wearing masks. And some are interpreting that to say if you're less than 6 feet, wear masks. But what we understand and know is that it's having multiple measures is really what the protection is. I would say you want to put information not just online, but in the physical location when you've got physical locations, right? If you're making appointments, you want to remind people when you do your appointment reminders of the requirements, right? If you have the capability of providing supplies to those who come and don't have them and offering them, then do that. You know, that could be an option. Maybe there's a bit of rationing. Maybe you're not sitting there just handing out masks, but instead, if you see someone who doesn't have a mask and really wants to come that day, then say, we can offer you a mask if you like, something like that. I would say it's not about the other person. You know, a lot of times people have opinions of who does what and why. And you don't want to make that part of it when you're engaging with the public. It's really a matter of you're taking these measures to protect your workforce so that you can stay open. And you're taking these measures to protect other members of the public who come in so that you're meeting your basic obligations to everyone who is invited into your location. And that too helps you stay open, because not being safe and getting sued later is probably not going to be a good idea, right? So, so the idea is of service, and to do that, you've got to take some basic precautions for the safety of other patrons and of yourself. And you're looking forward to the day that we don't have to do this, because there are enough people who are healthy and safe and recovered and have access to what they need. But for right now, this is the way it is. And we'll keep you updated. We'll keep you updated as we relax provisions, right? So the point is not to make it about them, to really just focus on why you're doing it and where they can get information for if they need to come without those restrictions. Some places even offer private viewing options, right? If you want to come after hours and you want to book an appointment and you don't want to wear a mask or this and that, and you know, you're willing to pay a special booking fee. Like, it all depends upon your particular location and services and that sort of thing. But I would say be creative, be true to yourself, and it's about you and your business and the greater service to the public, and not really about how one individual person reacts.
I've seen some very clever signs at this point, so I think sometimes levity helps. Alex, we have a really big question for you. So small business owners, they're going to be bringing on new employees, right? So how do you screen for COVID without violating HIPAA? What do we need to know?
Well, I think that, you know, when I saw this question, my question back is, what are you screening for? Are you screening because you're trying to keep everybody safe right now and you have new employees coming in and you need to make sure that you're protecting your workforce? Or are you screening because you want to know if they've already had it, because you don't want to have to deal with taking leave or them taking leave? So I think in terms of safety, you are permitted to ask people about what they, you know, if they have had it. You are permitted to do temperature checks. You are permitted to do other things as outlined by the EEOC and the CDC, which are the federal agencies dealing with safety. But I think that you want to be clear that you're trying to maintain safety in your workplace and you have a safety plan for doing that, which involves X, Y, and Z and is done for everybody. Not, oh, you're new, tell me everything about your medical history so that I can make sure that I don't have to deal with any illness, because not that that's what people are doing, but you might not even be able to know anyway. So I think it's really focusing on how you're keeping your employees safe and having a plan to do that based on, CDC does have guidance for different kinds of businesses, local, as we've talked about, there's endless guidance. Maybe it's frustrating, but I think you have to be taking that guidance and translating it into what your business is going to be doing and communicating that to all of your employees. I think one thing to just add is, we've heard in the news, and I've barely I've barely been out in the past few months, but even I can sense the anxiety and the, people at stores being harmed by customers coming in. There's a very high anxiety here. And so I think that we need to be really clear about how are we going to maintain this 6 feet separation? What, in the places where that can't happen, what's that really going to look like? Because you want your employees to feel safe, all of them, new and old, coming in.
Great. We're going to dive into a number of questions here from our community. The first question is, what if you can't find specific information for your industry? So it sounds like this person owns a yoga studio and they're trying to determine restrictions, especially cleanliness practices, how they can adhere to all of the regulations that seemingly are not on the internet.
Yeah, I mean, in some jurisdictions, even certain type of locations, for example, a yoga studio, may not be classified or considered the way other similar businesses are. And so there may not be a specific regulation or guidance regarding that type of entity. What I would do is say, what does it look like when people come into your space and use your space, and the things that they touch and the way they come in contact with other people and how you deliver the services? Think about it on that level. Act as if you are the customer, every part of it. When you register, are you signed up? Are you registering new? Are you signing up for a class? When you come in, how does that look? How does that operate? When you're actually receiving the service, as you're paying to check out, as you're tipping, right? As you're collecting your coat or your umbrella or whatever it is. I don't think there's many coats, but a few places I think are still getting snow. Think about that experience and then say, where would the risks be? Where would the risks be as part of that? And what can we do to minimize them, to be safer? And then how do we want to communicate that? Okay. And what does that mean for changing the customer experience? So a lot of places say, don't pay here. You don't need to pay here. You can pay remotely. You can pay before you walk in. If you look at, for example, medical practices, a lot of them say all of the check-in happens online or ahead of time, or if that's not possible, in the parking lot, right? Something like that. And then you come into the space, the physical space. It's that limited physical space that holds bodies and breath and respiratory droplets, right? In that one space throughout the day, that's the risk. And so you want to think about that. So even though there may not be a regulation specific to your industry, what are some of those similar ones where you say, oh, well, these are what they're recommending for them, and that makes sense for us, even though we're not required, even though we're not technically licensed that way. Just as a matter of best practice, we're going to adopt some form of that, maybe not even fully, but some form of that that's sustainable for us and that we feel comfortable with. The other thing, though, to make very clear to employees and customers, well, I wouldn't necessarily say you need to make very clear, but be very clear on, is there is no way of being totally risk-free. Okay, these are all about safer practices, right? And so you want to be careful about saying, well, about how you describe this, because ultimately there's always a risk, right? And the idea is to minimize and reduce it.
So Trisha here owns an essential business. She's had several employees that have had to travel to complete work, and she has been trying to figure out the best way to know if employees are also traveling for personal travel, because she's trying to evaluate the risk of personal travel from her workforce. She's had employees push back, saying that they don't have to tell her. So talk to us about what she should do here.
Yeah, I'll just make a brief comment on this and then let Alex give her 2 cents as the employment lawyer on the call. But you should have a policy at this point, especially as it relates to sanitation and hygiene in the office that specifically addresses COVID concerns. And so already you've got to be a little bit careful there, because there are already ways that people can easily get in trouble with such policies. But part of it is making sure that people understand that it's not about, yes, you need to be speaking up if you have symptoms, right? Yes, you need to speak up if you've been in close contact for longer than 15 minutes with people who have symptoms. Yes, you need to, it benefits you and your job security to say these things, because if we have multiple people sick in the office, or in the workplace, and especially for smaller businesses, then that is a critical blow to the business and affects your livelihood, right? So it's important to kind of emphasize that when introducing these policies, and also the fact that you could be completely asymptomatic and yet a super spreader, right? And so you really want to make sure that's the whole reason why you want to have these increased hygiene practices, because symptoms are important, but they're not the only thing. And it's the ones who don't have symptoms that might feel that it's okay because they're not sick. And the reality is we don't know who's sick.
Yeah, and I think that bringing up, it's hard. You can't ask your employees everything about what they're doing. You can point to, if you're in a place where your governor is encouraging people to stay at home, or your governor is actually putting out requirements about what's allowed, you can be talking about the fact that you expect your employees to be following those. That's what we're doing here. But no, you can't prevent them from whatever they're doing on their vacation time. So I think that, as Lenore was saying, it's really about, look, anybody could be in contact with anyone could become infected and infect others. You don't have to be traveling to do it, right? So I think you need to have the structures in place so that you're doing the best you can to monitor for employee infection and help them with if somebody is sick, allowing them and paying them to be out. And that's, I get it. It's not comfortable to talk about with everybody in this way, but I think that that's kind of the bottom line.
Alex, we've had a number of questions about the responsibility of COVID testing. Is the obligation on the small business owner? Should they be required to be testing all of their employees or customers, like measuring temperature? What should small business owners know about what their obligations are?
That's a great question. So I think that in terms of employees, I will be honest that I don't know right now if there's an explicit obligation about this. I think that the tools are kind of constantly changing and what's available and can you get a test, et cetera. But I do know that, temperature checks and others for employees who are coming in are permitted and might be a relevant part of your safety plan. In terms of testing, I think it's about figuring out, like, what are you testing for? So if you're asking somebody to get a test because they might have it, that's one thing. There's reasons for people, if you are offering the expanded family medical leave, then you might be interested in knowing that they have COVID because it is a reason for them to take that leave, or suspected, but still people want to know. If you're talking about antibody testing, I think we still don't really know what the benefits, if any, are if somebody has antibodies. So I wouldn't put too much trust in that. But I think until we have instant testing at the door where we can make sure that people are COVID-free before they enter places, it's kind of a mixed question.
Got it. And we have a number of questions about FMLA that are very specific, and unfortunately don't have enough time to go into the detail. But Alex, where can people learn about FMLA and how they, what they should be following for their specific business?
Yes, so the Department of Labor has actually put out a very helpful FAQ about the expanded family medical leave that we can probably share. It's also on our firm's website. We have a coronavirus resource page, and you can look there for those FAQs.
Great. So we only have a few minutes left, but would love to hear from both of you. What are the best resources for small business owners to move forward during this time? Where should they be looking? What should they be reading? What should they know?
Yeah, I would say one is where your location is, look to the government sources of information. So if you're in a state where your governor has issued executive orders, then you really want to make sure that I bookmark it, right? I bookmark that and check it regularly. If you are in a county where your county is active about issuing regulations or press releases or information, then you want to bookmark that. I've got the landing page for the PPP program at the Department of Treasury bookmarked, as well as the SBA page. So you want to think about the things that are relevant to your business and bookmark those. Also, I would say, please keep abreast of what the CDC is saying and what WHO is saying, right? And personally, I like to make sure that I'm careful about what I consume outside of this factual information, right? Because it's an easy way, at least for me, to get distracted when I have limited time for distractions. And maybe if I'm being distracted, I want to do something a little bit more fun and exciting and restorative. So those are good ways. The other thing is, if you've used a CPA or attorney or other licensed professional in the past, check to see if they're putting out advisories and information and insight. It's a great way to at least get some information without always having to pay for it, and to have an idea of when you might want to put in a phone call, right? So I think those are good starting points for people who say, well, there's so much out there. Where do I look and how do I control it? It's a nice little, I have like a little bookmark folder, and I just drop down and check those. I give myself 15 minutes, and then either I have something to action or I move to the next thing.
Yeah, and I would just briefly add, if you're part of an association or group that, that we have to be in community to get through this. This is one community. You might have your more specific community, literally your physical community, or what kind of industry that you're in. And yes, look to those people, talk about these issues together, ask questions, and look at resources. I know that in the legal community, there's been an explosion of free resources, and it's helpful, it's interesting, and you can spend all your time doing it, but I think that you can also, it's a good thing to keep on top of who are the people around you doing similar work to you that you trust. Look to them and try and share.
Great. So my takeaway from this is communicate, communicate, communicate. So thank you so much, Lenore, Alex. This has been an incredible session. We so appreciate your expertise.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
And make sure to sign up for our session next week. We're going to talk negotiation. And I know that that was a key topic from today as well. How do you negotiate your lease terms, contracts with suppliers? We'll be joined by Alex Carter, who is an award-winning professor from Columbia Law. She's also the author of a new book, Ask for More, which is a Wall Street Journal bestseller already. So it will be a great session. Also, remember to stay on top of all of our news and resources. We'll have updates on PPP with Marilyn Landis. And don't forget to check out our YouTube channel. Thanks so much, everyone, and be well.